Tonight, let me guide you into a gentle world of moonlit rivers and endless sky, a peaceful journey where curiosity and quiet wonder lead the way. I will take you on a gentle journey to the misty northern coast of Ireland, where the ancient waves of the Atlantic have whispered their stories for thousands of years. This is the legend of Finn MacCool and the Giant's Causeway. A tale of courage, cleverness, and the endless beauty of nature. Picture the coastline at twilight. The horizon glows in shades of deep violet and silver. Salted breeze drifts through tall grasses. Seabirds circle lazily overhead, their calls soft and echoing. Every rock along the shore glistens with the memory of rain. Far above the cliffs stands Finn MacCool, the mighty hero of the Fianna, tall and broad-shouldered, with eyes the color of a storm-lit sea. Yet tonight his heart is calm. He listens to the rhythm of the ocean, each wave rolling like a giant heartbeat. Beside him, his beloved wife Unak watches the fading sun, a quiet smile on her lips. For days, whispers have reached them across the water. Whispers of Benandener, the giant of Scotland, boasting that he is the greatest of all and that Finn is too afraid to face him. The wind carries those words like a challenge across the narrow sea. Finn is strong, yes, but he is no reckless fighter. He values the peace of the land, the safety of his people, and the quiet nights when stars hang like lanterns over the hills. Still, a spark of curiosity stirs within him. Could he truly meet Benandener? Could he cross the wide, cold waters to Scotland and prove his strength? He walks along the shore, feeling the cool stones beneath his feet. Each stone seems to hum with ancient power. He pauses, imagining a bridge of rocks stretching across the sea, a path of hexagonal pillars rising straight from the ocean floor, each one fitting perfectly with the next, like pieces of a grand puzzle made by the earth itself. The moon climbs higher, spreading silver light over the dark water. The tide whispers secrets of hidden strength. Finn closes his eyes and breathes deeply. A plan begins to form, slow and steady like the tide. "My love," he says softly to Unak, "if a path of stone could rise from these waves, I could walk to Scotland on my own 2 feet. No ship, no or only the strength of my hands and the will of my heart." Unak tilts her head, the moonlight catching her dark hair. "You dream of the impossible," she replies gently, "but sometimes, Finn, the impossible listens to those who believe." He smiles, a quiet, thoughtful smile. The ocean seems to answer with a long, rolling sigh. That night, as stars sparkle over the Antrim coast, Finn begins to work. He summons every ounce of his giant strength, lifting great stones from the earth and lowering them carefully into the restless sea. One by one, the rocks settle, locking into perfect shapes. Columns of basalt glowing faintly in the moonlight. Hours pass like heartbeats. The moon drifts westward. Still Finn labors, each movement strong yet deliberate. The stones rise behind him, forming a causeway that stretches farther and farther toward the distant silhouette of Scotland. And as the first hint of dawn touches the horizon, a path of stone now reaches deep into the sea, shimmering beneath the morning light. the beginning of a bridge that will carry a hero toward his destiny. Let the image linger in your mind. The vast ocean breathing gently, the patient hero building something extraordinary, stone by stone. The sky blushes with early light, and the air smells of salt and promise. Drift with that image for a moment. A steady rhythm of waves and a quiet certainty of purpose. The morning sun spreads a pale gold across the horizon. Sea mist swirls gently around Finn McCool as he straightens his broad back and looks at the work he has begun. Before him stretches a glittering pathway of stone, each column rising from the waves like an ancient song turned solid. The air tastes of salt and quiet determination. Finn breathes deeply and begins again. Stone after stone, he lowers the mighty pillars into the water. The rhythm becomes almost musical. Lift, step, settle. Lift, step, settle. Gulls wheel overhead, their cries fading into the soft thunder of the surf. Every motion is steady, unhurried like the slow heartbeat of the earth. Hours pass. The tide slips in and out, whispering against the newborn columns. By midday, the causeway stretches farther than the eye can see, a ribbon of dark basalt leading toward the faint outline of Scotland. The challenge of Banandiner is no longer just a rumor across the water. It is a promise waiting at the other end. That evening, Finn rests, leaning against a smooth boulder still warm from the sun. Unak arrives with a basket of warm bread and honey. She watches the distant horizon where the path disappears into mist. "You've made the sea itself into a road," she says softly. Her voice carries both pride and a quiet worry. "What waits for you in Scotland?" Finn smiles, brushing a hand across his brow. "The giant who calls himself the strongest of all," he answers. But strength is more than size. A true hero must have more than muscle. He must have wit and heart. Unak's eyes glint with thought. She knows Banandiner by reputation. A giant even larger than Finn, with a roar that shakes the hills. And she knows that pure strength may not be enough. Night falls. The moon drifts high and full, lighting the half-finished causeway with a silver glow. Finn lies beside Unak, listening to the deep roll of the sea. In the quiet, he senses the weight of the coming meeting. Yet, as the night deepened and the river whispered its endless song, Keel felt the quiet presence of the old man beside him. A gentle hush settled between them, inviting a story as ancient as the stars above. The night air settled like a soft veil across the quiet riverbank, where Keel rested after a day of wandering through whispering woods. The gentle current murmured a rhythm that lulled the mind, a melody older than memory itself. As the moon lifted a silver path over the water, a faint rustle came from the shadows. Keel looked up to see an old man step into the moonlight. His robe, the color of twilight, moved with the breeze as though woven from mist. His eyes glimmered with an ageless calm. "You walk with a question in your heart," the old man said, his voice a quiet bell. "Would you hear a story that carries the answer?" Keel nodded, settling closer to the fire's fading glow. The old man sat opposite him, hands folded lightly on his knees. Long ago, he began, when mountains were still young, there lived a seeker named Orin. He believed a single note of pure light sang from the highest peak in the world. They called it the sound of dawn, and Orin was certain that hearing it would reveal the truth of all things. The river hummed, echoing the cadence of the tale. Orin left his village at first light. The old man continued. He carried only a wooden staff and a heart full of yearning. Days melted into weeks as he crossed wide valleys and silent plains. Each night, the stars seemed to guide him, shimmering like patient teachers. Yet, the road was not empty of lessons. On the third day of his climb into the foothills, Orin met a figure dressed in crimson cloth, her hair like a sudden flame. She smiled with a warmth that could melt stone. "Where do you hurry, traveler?" she asked. "I seek the sound of dawn," Orin replied. The woman laughed gently, and her voice tasted of honey. "The sound you seek is pleasure itself," she said. "Stay with me. Taste the sweetness of life. You will find the note hidden in delight." Orin paused. Her presence filled the air with a fragrance of ripe fruit and hidden desire. For a moment, he felt the tug of comfort, the allure of forgetting the climb. But deep within, a quieter voice stirred one that reminded him of his purpose. He bowed with gratitude and walked on. The woman called after him, her words drifting like perfume on the breeze. "Remember, joy is not the chain. Joy is the key." The path grew steeper. Rocks slid beneath Orin's feet, and the sky pressed heavy with clouds. One night, as a storm gathered, he sought shelter beneath a twisted pine. There, a cloaked figure waited, eyes dark as endless caves. "Traveler," the figure hissed, "why chase illusions? The mountain is cruel. Storms will break you. Turn back before the cold devours your heart." Orin's breath quickened. Fear wrapped him like a second skin. The figure's voice seeped into his thoughts, painting images of frostbitten hands and endless nights of failure. But again the quiet voice inside him whispered, "Fear is a shadow, not the mountain." He lifted his staff and stepped forward, each motion a defiance of doubt. Behind him, the figure's laughter crumbled like dry leaves, fading into the storm. The old man paused, letting the sound of the river fill the silence. The fire cracked softly, sparks rising like tiny stars. Orin's journey was far from over, he said at last, eyes glinting like reflections of starlight. But each encounter was a door to a deeper understanding. Pleasure and fear, they are teachers, not chains. The sound of dawn is not found by fleeing them, but by walking through them. The old man leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper that seemed to blend with the night itself. Would you hear what awaited Orin beyond the storm? The fire settled into glowing embers as the old man continued, his voice like the hush of falling leaves. Orin climbed higher, the storm fading to a misty drizzle. At dawn, he entered a valley where silence felt alive. In the center stood a small stone arch, older than memory, and beneath it sat an old shepherd with a silver flute. The shepherd raised his eyes and smiled. "Traveler," he said, "why do you search for the sound of dawn so far from where it lives?" Orin bowed respectfully. Because I wish to hear the truth." The shepherd played a single, soft note. It lingered in the damp air like a promise. "Truth is not a place," he said, "but a rhythm. Sit and listen." Oren sat beside him, closing his eyes. He heard the rustle of wet grass, the distant cry of a hawk, the heartbeat of the earth. For a moment, he wondered if this was the sound of dawn. But the quiet voice inside whispered, "Not yet." The shepherd chuckled as though hearing the thought. "The mountain calls you still. Follow it. But remember, the note is always closer than your breath." Oren thanked the shepherd and walked on. The path twisted through fog, and time lost its edges. Hours or days, he could not tell. Hunger tugged at him, but a strange peace filled the spaces where fear had once lived. One evening, as twilight bled into deep indigo, Oren came upon a mirror-still lake. The surface reflected a million stars. In its center stood a lone tree, its branches luminous with soft white light. He waded to the tree and touched its bark. Warmth pulsed beneath his fingertips like the beat of a gentle heart. A voice, neither male nor female, rose from within the tree. "Seeker," it said, "you carry many questions, yet you are the question itself. To hear the sound of dawn, you must first hear the sound of you." Oren closed his eyes and listened to the water brushing his knees, to the quiet thrum of his own pulse, to the endless sky humming above. Slowly, the boundaries between him and the night dissolved. In that timeless space, he realized the sound of dawn was not a distant note, but the meeting of all things, the sigh of wind, the warmth of living wood, the steady drum of his heart. Light bloomed inside him, not bright, but deep. It was the sound of being alive. The old man paused, his gaze drifting to the stars overhead. Oren stayed beneath the glowing tree until the first blush of morning. When the sun rose, he descended the mountain, carrying no treasure but a quiet that would never leave him. He returned to his village, and when people asked what he had found, he only smiled and said, "I found the sound that was always with me." The old man's voice softened further, barely more than the river's murmur. "Keel, the sound of dawn is not locked in peaks or valleys. It waits in the space between each breath, in the listening heart. The mountain you climb is within." The night grew still. A cool breeze rippled the water, carrying the weight of the story into every shadow. Keel felt the meaning settle inside him like a warm stone quiet, enduring, alive. The river kept its gentle rhythm while the old man gazed into the glowing embers, letting a comfortable silence stretch. Keel shifted slightly, waiting as the moon slid higher in the velvet sky. At dawn, the old man continued. Oren returned to his village with a quiet heart. Yet the journey did not end when his feet touched familiar soil. True journeys seldom end where they began. As Oren walked the narrow paths of his childhood, people greeted him with curious eyes. "Did you hear the sound of dawn?" they asked. He only smiled, offering no grand story, just a calm presence that seemed to soften the air around him. One evening, the village children gathered around, eager for adventure. Oren sat beneath an old fig tree, the same tree he had climbed as a boy, and began to speak. "There was a mountain," he told them, "and I climbed it to find a note of perfect light. But the mountain was not a place. It was a mirror. Every step I took upward was a step inward. The children leaned closer, their eyes bright. "A mirror?" one asked. "Yes," Oren said gently. "A mirror that showed me fear, joy, and silence. Each face I met pleasure, fear, the wise shepherd, the luminous tree was a part of me, calling to be heard." The children grew thoughtful. The night birds sang their quiet songs. "Did you bring the sound back?" a small girl whispered. Oren tapped his chest. "It is here," he said. "And here," he added, pointing to each of them in turn. "It is in the breath you take, in the stillness after laughter, in the pause before the next heartbeat. You do not need to climb a mountain to hear it." From that evening on, the village noticed something subtle but real. When Oren spoke, arguments cooled. When he listened, worry softened. His presence was like a slow, deep current that carried peace wherever it went. Years passed. Seasons circled like quiet wheels. Oren aged, but the quiet glow within him never dimmed. When travelers came seeking wisdom, he welcomed them with simple meals and long silences. One winter, a young woman arrived, weary from her own restless search. She asked, "Where do I begin to find what you have found?" Oren smiled, offering her a seat by the fire. "Begin by listening," he said. "Not to the world shouting, but to the whisper between breaths. That is where the sound of dawn sings." The young woman closed her eyes. The fire popped gently. In the hush, she felt something vast and tender like the first note of a distant song. The old man paused again, his story settling into the night like soft rain. "Heal," he said, voice barely louder than the river's flow. Oren's journey was never about reaching a mountain. It was about awakening to what is always present. We climb to remember what we already carry. Heal sat very still, the warmth of the fire and the cool of the night weaving together. He felt the quiet press of his own heartbeat, steady and sure, and realized he was already listening to his own sound of dawn. The old man rose, his robe brushing the earth with a whisper. "The night is deep, but you are deeper," he said, and with a nod he stepped into the shadows. In a breath, he was gone. Heel watched the rippling water. The stars seemed closer now, like companions. Slowly, he lay back on the soft grass, the river's gentle murmur and the memory of the story folding around him like a warm cloak. His thoughts drifted, lighter than mist. Somewhere between waking and dreaming, he felt it the quiet music within his own breath, the eternal note of being alive. And he understood. Yet his heart is steady. The stars above seemed to whisper encouragement, their light dancing on the ripples of the tide. Finn closes his eyes and breathes with the ocean. Slow and deep, letting the sound of each wave melt into his chest. By the first blush of dawn, he rises again. The air is cool and damp with sea spray. With every lift of stone and careful placement, the causeway grows like a living thing. The columns form neat hexagons, each one fitting perfectly as if guided by unseen hands. The work is long but peaceful, a meditation of strength and purpose. 3 days pass. Clouds drift like soft sails across the sky. Seals watch curiously from the rolling waves. their dark eyes glinting in the pale morning light. At last, the path of basalt reaches the Scottish shore. Only a thin mist lies between Ireland and the distant hills of Banandiner's land. Finn wipes the salt from his face and smiles. The bridge is complete. The ocean, once a barrier, is now a gentle road of stone. But Unaka's thoughts grow sharper. She remembers the tales of Banandiner's size. A giant taller than any cliff, stronger than the crashing sea. And though Finn is mighty, she knows love is wiser than pride. That night, as Finn rests, Unak walks the shoreline. The moonlight paints her path silver. She listens to the hush of the waves, and an idea blooms. A clever plan as quiet and sure as the tide itself. When Finn wakes at dawn, she is ready. "My love," Unak whispers. "If you meet Banandiner as you are, you may fight until the rocks crumble. But if we use our minds, we can win without a single blow." Finn studies her calm, determined face. He has always trusted her wisdom more than his own strength. He nods, and the sea breeze carries their silent agreement. The following morning, a pale sun drifted above the calm Atlantic. Finn woke to the scent of warm bread and the sound of Unak humming softly. She had been busy before dawn, preparing not just breakfast, but their clever plan. "Today Banandiner may cross the stones you built," she said, handing him a steaming cup of herbal tea. "But you, my brave Finn, will not greet him as a warrior. You will greet him as a secret." Finn raised an eyebrow, curious but trusting. Unak guided him inside their stone cottage and began to dress him in layers of soft blankets and oversized garments. She even crafted a little bonnet to rest on his head. "You will be our baby," she whispered with a mischievous smile. "Stay silent. Leave the rest to me." Soon, a deep rumble echoed across the water. A thunder that was not of the sky. The ground trembled as the enormous shape of Banandiner, the Scottish giant, appeared on the horizon. He strode along the basalt causeway with massive steps, each footfall sending a shiver through the stones. Unak stepped outside to greet him, her expression calm and welcoming. "Good morning, mighty Banandiner," she said sweetly. "My husband is away hunting, but please, come in and rest a while." Banandiner's eyes narrowed. He was taller than the tallest pine, shoulders as wide as a cliff. "I have come to see Finn MacCool," he boomed. "They say he is the greatest giant in Ireland. I wish to test his strength." "You will, of course," Unak replied kindly. "But first, you must be hungry after such a long walk across the sea. Come, share some bread." Inside the cottage, the Scottish giant ducked low, peering around. His gaze fell upon a massive cradle in the corner. Inside lay what appeared to be an enormous infant, swaddled in blankets. Finn himself, eyes closed, pretending to sleep. Banandiner blinked, stunned. If this was the baby, how massive must the father be? He shifted uneasily, a rare flicker of doubt crossing his fierce face. Unak placed a loaf of bread in his huge hand. "Here, have a bite," she said, her voice honey smooth. The bread, baked with iron-hard crust, was tougher than stone. Banandiner struggled to chew, wincing as he tried to tear it apart. She smiled politely. Finn bakes this every morning. He says it keeps the teeth sharp. The giant swallowed hard, his eyes darting once more to the slumbering child. If this was just the baby, what unimaginable strength would Finn possess? Banandiner's heart thudded like a drum. He cleared his throat, muttered something about urgent business back in Scotland, and rose to his full yet suddenly humbled height. "I will. Return another day," he rumbled, backing toward the door. "Give my regards to Finn." And with that he turned, his great strides quick and uneven, retreating across the causeway. The ground trembled until his figure vanished into the northern mist. Unak waited until the sound of footsteps faded into the wind. Then she turned to the baby, laughter shining in her eyes. "You can stop pretending now, my mighty Finn," she whispered. Finn sat up, a grin spreading across his face. "You, my love, are the cleverest giant of all," he said, pulling her into a warm embrace. Together they listened to the soft rhythm of the waves, the sea itself humming in quiet triumph. As the evening sun slipped below the horizon, a golden haze settled over the sea. The basalt columns of the giant's causeway glowed like ancient jewels, their edges kissed by the last light.
Finn and Una walked hand in hand along the quiet shore.
The ocean, now gentle as a lullaby, whispered against the stones. Far across the water, the silhouette of Scotland lay wrapped in blue mist. And somewhere beyond, the mighty Banandiner surely still trembled at the thought of Ireland's baby giant. Finn chuckled softly. "No battle today," he said. "Only the sound of waves and the cleverness of my Unak." Unak leaned against him, her voice a calm breeze. "Sometimes the greatest strength," she murmured, "is knowing when not to fight." They paused to watch the moon rise. A silver lantern scattering light across the dark water. The tide moved with a slow, steady rhythm, each wave carrying away the day's excitement, leaving only peace. Finn closed his eyes, breathing in the cool salt air. The world felt hushed and endless. A perfect place to drift into dreams. And as the night deepened, the giant's causeway stood silent and proud, its stones keeping the secret of a clever plan. And the gentle heartbeat of the ocean lulled all who listened into a quiet, starlit sleep.